as you can see by this astonishing graph, this year's numbers are way higher than they were last year at this time. So I'm actually really excited for that because last year's numbers were quite low. If you're looking closely at the graph, you'll see that they were nothing like what they are now. So that just goes to show that what I'm doing is really working and really helping me get more sales. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole and I am a part-time reseller on Poshmark, and the numbers are in, the end of the month has come. Let's talk about how February was for me on Poshmark. It was better and worse than January in many ways, so let's dive right into it. And make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss the future reselling content that I do. I do reselling videos every single Thursday, and I would love to have you stick around to watch more. Let's get right into the video. So, as a recap, in January we made about $1,600 in sales, and it was 61 total sales, or total orders made. So in February, I made $1,156 in sales, and I made about 63 sold items or total orders. So that's what I mean by it was better and worse than January, because the number of orders was more, but the number that I actually made was less. And I think that's because of many different reasons. One, I think I made a lot more bigger sales in January. In fact, one day I had sales that practically got me to $400, which is very unusual for me. So I think that really plays a big role in the amount that I made in January versus the amount I made in February. February was more on par with the normal number of sales that I would make and the normal amount of each sale cost. So I think that just goes to show as a whole why the numbers were slightly different. But overall, I'm still very happy with February. I think it was a very successful month. All right, so let's talk about the top brands that had sold, because that's really important and really interesting to know. And like I said, month after month, American Eagle is always a top selling brand for me. I always pick it up and I swear by it. But let's go in order. So we have Sperry's, which is actually first, and that's because I sold one pair of shoes that ended up actually being that total amount. So we had Sperry's, we had UGG, and we also had American Eagle and Ivanka Trump. Those were the top selling 4 brands in my closet. Then we had some honorable mentions, such as the vintage brands, Nike, Victoria's Secret, and Coach. Now, in terms of the number of sales per day, it mainly averaged around 2 per day, but then there was days where there was none, and then there were days where there was more than 2. So, but I would say on average it was roughly 2. I only had 4 days in February where I didn't make a sale, which again is pretty consistent and pretty on par. Because I am doing these things that I swear by doing every single day, they really make those sales more consistent. And then in terms of listings sold, there was, again, multiple. It would probably be 2 items per day on average, but there was one day where it was like close to 7 items sold, which was a day that I, had a couple bundle sales and stuff like that. So on average, still really on par with normal months. All right, so let's talk in comparison. I know we kind of briefly touched upon the comparison between January and February. I think January had a lot of peaks, and you'll see that in the graph here, but again, very consistent, roughly the same number of sales, so really not much to compare. So in terms of listings sold, I sold 6 American Eagle, which was actually the top selling brand, and then Nike was close behind, and then Victoria's Secret was close behind that. So these are brands that I swear by. A lot of people don't really waste their time picking them up, but I actually find that they are more beneficial to pick up because they always sell for me and I always can make my money back. So I swear by picking them up, and I can't recommend enough if you don't already pick them up to start picking them up, because the numbers really show that they really do sell. And then in terms of number of sold items, I had the majority sell in women's, which is again pretty normal for me. I had a couple men's items and a couple kids items actually sell as well. I've been picking up a lot more kids items, especially when I go to the bins, and so those items are actually selling. I actually sold a pair of boots right like a couple days after I went to the bins. So the boots and a couple other small kids items had sold, and so again, most of my sales came from women's items, and then a very small percent came from men and kids items. Okay, so about 91.8% of the sales that I made were not new with tag items, and then about 8 to 9% was about new with tag items. So I actually do sell a lot of new with tag, but this month in particular, I think it was a little bit lower than I remember prior months being, but that's totally okay. I do have a lot of new with tags still in my closet, and hopefully I will sell some in the coming weeks. Okay, so in terms of how people purchased, about 78% of my sales came from offers, which again is so important. I can't recommend enough setting out those offers. Actually, that's where I feel like most of my sales normally come from, is offers. So that's that number. And then about 18 to 19% came from bundling and then offering. So that's a great way to also, offer and entice people to buy more, to bundle. And then a couple, like a small percentage of the sales came from the buy now. So I'm actually pretty happy that I did get some buy now sales, because that doesn't always happen for me. And so the fact that it happened this month is definitely a good sign. And I'm just going to keep looking to make more buy now sales, because again, I don't have to send out an offer. I don't have to send out a shipping discount. They just buy completely outright. And that really is better for me. So just to make it clear about how important I think sending out offers is, about 46 out of the 63 orders that I had came from an offer. So that just goes to show that that is a majority. That is about 2/3. And so it's so important to be sending out offers, because that's going to give you more success. All right, now that we talked about the sales that we made, let's talk about the inventory that I added. Again, I can't stress how important it is to be listing every single day. I'm still listing about 5 items a day. So in the total month of February, I list 271 items. And you could see it's pretty consistent to January's numbers, because I was trying to do 5 a day. Some days was a little bit more, some days was a little less, but I'm still very on par with the numbers that I want to be adding every single day. And in terms of what was actually listed for the brands, this is a little skewed because certain items actually cost more. So I added a dress that I'm actually selling for a friend. It's a very expensive designer dress that was used for a bridesmaid's dress, and then I'm also selling a pair of Prada shoes it's also skewing the numbers. So those are the top 2 brands that I added into my closet in the month of February. Again, like I mentioned, the brands that I've added into my closet are not really normal brands. They are more brands that I either found at the thrift stores that I haven't really found before, or brands that I've relisted items for. So that's why the numbers are a bit skewed for the listed inventory. And for available items, I have about 480 items available right now in my closet, and about 460 to 70 of those items are women's, and then the rest are men's, kids, and then home. So for the year so far, from January and February of 2023, I sold 124 items with a total of $2,704. And as you can see by this astonishing graph, this year's numbers are way higher than they were last year at this time. So I'm actually really excited for that, because last year's numbers were quite low. If you're looking closely at the graph, you'll see that they were nothing like what they are now. So that just goes to show that what I'm doing is really working and really helping me get more sales. And even in terms of the number of items sold, that number is also way higher than it was prior. So I love looking at these graphs to compare to the prior period, because it is just so intriguing to see that if what you're doing is working or not. And I made a lot of big changes over the last couple of months, and it's so nice to see that they're actually paying off. So all in all, that is a recap on the month of February for sales for me, and also a recap of the year so far and how it compares to prior years. It is so interesting to see the numbers each month. I love looking at them to see how I'm doing, if I'm doing better or worse. I'm hoping that the month of March actually brings me a lot of luck as well, and I'm going to really try and keep being consistent and trying to add every single day, relist every single day, share, follow, and I'm really hoping to get more sales from that. And it'll be really interesting to see how March compares to January and February. And also, something that's important to keep in note with February that I should have mentioned earlier, but I'm just remembering now, February was 3 days shorter than the month of January was. So that was also why the numbers could be slightly different. And so I maybe would have had 3 more days worth of sales in February if we had 3 more days. So I think that's also important to note that January was a longer month. And so March is a longer month as well, so hopefully that means that I can kind of get closer to the amount made in January. But again, it's going to be a little tricky because I did sell a lot of big ticket items, and that is not really usual for me. So I'm curious how your February was on Poshmark, or maybe any other reselling platform that you're on if you're not on Poshmark. Comment down below, let me know how it was for you. I'm always so curious to see how others are doing, but this is not meant to be a video saying that if you have less sales and a less total made than I do, then you're not doing well. That is not true at all. You are doing amazing with whatever you're doing. And if you have made 5 sales or if you have made 300 sales, you're doing amazing. And so don't let this discourage you. I just like these videos, and I like to make these videos to be very transparent with you guys, because a lot of the times it's hard to know how much a part-time reseller is truly making. And for me, I'm not really like going to the thrift stores every single day. I went to the thrift stores a couple times this month, and I didn't really have a lot of time to go out thrifting and stuff like that. So, and I actually found myself running out of inventory a couple times throughout the month. So I would really have to relist items and relist them manually because, you know, they weren't old enough. So I struggled a bit more this month, and you could definitely see that in the numbers, but I'm still very proud of the number of sales and the total amount made. And I think it's going to be, I'm going to try and make it a goal this year to make over 1,000 each month. And I think that is definitely doable if I continue with what I'm doing now. So if this video is something that you enjoyed watching, you could click right here to see how January was for me as well. I briefly talked about it, but like if you want to see the specifics on the brands and the insights and stuff like that, you can watch that. And if you also want to see things that you should and shouldn't do on Poshmark, you can click right here. But until next time, I'll see you then.